Good afternoon, folks. This is Kurt. I'm the instructor for English 2331 World Literature, um, asynchronous online, spring 2024. And this video probably will be a little long, so just bear with me. You might want to, watch 10 minutes or so, pause, take it in, uh, continue from there. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through our course syllabus and go to our Blackboard site also and kind of show you where everything is and get you acquainted with everything. Okay. So what I'm going to do first of all is I will. You can't see my screen at the moment, but I'm going to go, okay, I'm going to make sure that I am, before I share my screen, I'm going to make sure that I am connected to Blackboard. So just bear with me just a moment, because of course that is essential. All right. Okay. So now we've got that going on. I'm going to switch back to my screen here. I'm going to go ahead and share screen so that you can see our Blackboard site. All right, so this is our Blackboard site here for our course. So your syllabus is located in Getting Started. That's also where you'll be able to find this video. Syllabus is also under Syllabus. That's actually probably the easiest way to find it is under Syllabus, of course. I'll just click over here. Right there it is, Syllabus under Syllabus there. But really, what I want to show you is that everything for the course is under course content. If we look at this, the entire course is already laid out. Um, I went ahead and did this because this is an asynchronous course, and you know you can go on and get started as need be. So if we click on week one, what we have here is just our course syllabus, or link there too. Um, and really, what I'm going to ask you to do uh, for week one is to, well, obviously watch this video, and then go through the syllabus on your own and formulate any questions that you may have about it. And for our first uh, uh, reflection, right? Was trying to think about what I'm calling them in this class, but our first reflection is next week, and I'm going to ask you to reflect upon the syllabus essentially, and reflect upon any questions that you may have. Next week, of course, also begins our reading. Actually, that's our first discussion post. I'm sorry. Anyway, I'm going to pull up the syllabus here so I can refer to what I'm talking about and I don't sound like a crazy person. Um, okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to screen share our syllabus here in just a moment so that I can start from there. All right, so I'm going to stop this screen share. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to screen share our syllabus. Just a moment. Okay, it should be visible. So, all right. So here we have my contact information, obviously my name, online asynchronous. This is the Zoom code for getting into my Zoom, my virtual office. If you need to meet with me and we arrange a meeting with me via Zoom, you'll use this code. I'll probably, we'll arrange for those meetings ahead of time and I'll probably send you a link via email anyway. But for your reference, here is the Zoom. If you are around on campus and we make a arrangement, you can also come to my office, 316 Classroom Hall. Again, this is an asynchronous course. I'm not going to expect you to come to my office in person uh, at all, but that's available to you. This phone number here is for texting purposes, and it is a number that only my students have, so that, if I get a text from this number, I know that it's from a student. I just ask that you clearly indicate each time you text me your first and last name and which course that you're in. Okay. And then my office hours are student hours, right? Um, those are going to be Monday, it should be, that's a mistake, should be Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, right? Monday through Thursday is really what it should be. It should be, it's a noon to 1:30 or by appointment. Really, it's good practice if you want to, particularly, if you want to connect with me via Zoom, because I'm not just going to sit there with the Zoom open, right? So, but if you need to speak with me, if you want to talk to me, I am more than happy to do that. Just we need to make arrangements as to the time, and we'll get that worked out. Okay, this is a artifact, if you will, from pandemic. And it and it essentially still applies, because I honestly had a number of students last semester, this last fall, who did have COVID. So, the COVID information does still apply. So that's just there for you. But let me backtrack a bit. Here is my email address, cmeyer@tamusa.edu or kurt.meyer@tamusa.edu. They both get to the same place. I generally use cmeyer@tamusa.edu. That should get you where you need to go. Okay. So I'll start with our course description. So this course considers text from diverse genres, periods, cultural traditions, with attention to critical thinking, writing within the framework of cultural diversity. Readings will include historical accounts, letters, essay, poetry, dramas, memoirs, speeches, scientific writing, religious tracts, political treatises, philosophy, novels, oral traditions, popular folk literatures. This course meets standard language, philosophy, and cultural foundation component under the core curriculum. Okay, and the prerequisite, of course, is English 1302. And this is the course description that I believe is probably still there. Um, this was from a couple of years ago, but it essentially remains valid. From Enkidu to Esau, Hanuman to the Monkey King, and the Thing to Chewbacca and Goku. Throughout this course, we will consider the question of what it fundamentally means to be human or not through the lenses of a variety of diverse literary sources from diverse authors. Now, that doesn't mean that we're privileging one particular culture or one particular point of view above another. It just means that there's a variety of authors that we're looking at. So let me just make that distinction there. In fact, um, quite a number of the authors that we're looking at are um, European and male. So anyway, or we don't know who the authors are because the works are anonymous, right? So I just wanted to point that out. We're not privileging one, uh, privileging or suppressing one group over another, right? Or one background or point of view over another. Okay. Um, so that's actually the essentially academic definition of diverse, right? So I mean, we're using an academic definition of diverse, okay, rather than a political definition of diverse. Okay. Um, Beginning with the literature of antiquity and concluding with postmodern epic. We will consider literary and epic narratives as expressed through divergent media. With slight emphasis on the hero's journey, we will explore what these works of literature may have meant through various periods of history and cultural frameworks, as well as what clues they may inspire within us today to enhance our lives. In other words, what can we carry from this literature from, in some cases, thousands of years ago? How can we bring that forward and make that real to us and vital to us today, right? Um, in short, literature is not composed in a vacuum, nor is that composition static. We will ask ourselves if these texts are still worth our time in the TikTok era. This course will emphasize reflective, critical, and creative engagements with the literature. This course will also be an introduction to textual analysis, cultural criticism, and writing for humanities disciplines. Okay, so here we see our course objectives. Um, all of our course material is provided via Blackboard. That's another reason that I went ahead and opened up the whole course. So essentially, your course material is via PDF documents that are linked in the various weeks on Blackboard. Like I showed you, or through the internet. Through it's also linked, right? Um, okay, this is a general statement. I'm not going to read it because you're probably done hearing my reading voice by now in this video, but this is a general statement about effort-based assessment or labor-based grading. Now, if you've taken courses within the Department of Language, Literature, and Arts at TAMUSA within the last, say, 2 to 3 years, you're probably somewhat familiar with labor-based assessment or effort-based assessment. Basically, the idea is you're ultimately assessed on the effort that you put into the work, right? So it's not as much about the final product as it is about the effort that you're putting into the work. And so the question then becomes, how are we assessing that effort in the course? So I'm going to pull forward here. So it really comes down to, especially for an asynchronous course, it comes down to two ideas, right? One being the timely submission of your work, because submission of your work is not only, as we all know, getting something, particularly if you had to be somewhere today, right? And I'm recording this on January 15th of 2024, the day before classes start, right? And this is a day marked. It's one of the coldest days in uh, recent years, right? Aside from the snowpocalypse of 2020, right? And so, if you had to be outside this morning, that required a great bit of effort, right? So, uh, if the idea is to submit work on time, to submit anything on time, to be on time requires significant effort often, right? So the one aspect of effort-based assessment is submitting work on time. The other aspect of it is complete versus incomplete, right? So what does complete versus incomplete mean? Well, complete means that with regard to each assignment or each category of assignment, there'll be basic um, rudimentary criteria, right, for what that assignment completion is, be it a certain length, be it basic contents and so forth. And then, and if that assignment meets those basic criteria, it's turned in on time, then it is complete, right? Um, so otherwise, it is incomplete. And if it's not turned in on time, it is late, right? And if it's not turned in at all, obviously that is a larger issue. So um, if we look here, um, each of your assignments will need to be submitted via Blackboard submission pages in the various weeks, in the folders in the various weeks um, of the course, right? So, and if you're submitting all of this on time and properly and so forth, you will um, obviously score extremely well towards your final grade. Um, so all materials, unless otherwise noted, um, should be posted through Blackboard, right? So that's number one. Um, no late work can be submitted after the 14th week of class. Okay. Um, if it's later than a week, I'm not obligated put to provide feedback on. It doesn't mean I won't. It just means that I don't have to. Um, and I'm asking you to track your own labor in the course. And so I will be tracking your labor in the course via Blackboard, and here is the code as to how I do it. Now, I say code because these are not numerical scores to be summed or averaged or anything like that. They are simply emblems, right? If Blackboard would allow me to put emojis in Blackboard to track your progress, I would do that, but it doesn't. So I have to use numbers. So these are the numbers here. If you see a 0 put in, it means that you did not turn in said assignment at all. Okay. And I'm not going to put zeros in. Zeros are blank spaces, right? And I'm not going to factor that in until, the end of the course. Okay. But a late assignment, you will see a 2, an incomplete assignment, you'll see a 3, and a complete assignment, you will see a 5. Okay. Now, here's how all this works. Each ignored assignment, right? Something that you don't turn in at all, that counts as a letter grade. Okay. That reduces your final grade by letter grade. And what you need to understand here is that's any assignment you don't turn in, and that's cumulative, right? So it is of the utmost importance that you turn in every assignment on time. Okay. And as complete as possible, right? A late assignment is defined as anything that is submitted past the due date, right? Okay. An incomplete assignment is defined as anything, and I've already talked about that does not meet the minimum criteria, right? And now this number 4 here is vitally important. You may accumulate up to a total of a combination of 4 later incomplete assignments and maintain a letter grade. What that means is that if you have turned everything in, okay, but you have a combination, say you have like one incomplete, one, in other words, 1 3 and 3 2s, a combination of 4, you would still get an A. That would essentially be like an 89.5 is what it would, kind of work out as to translate it to a letter grade. So that would still be an A, right? Okay. So, and so in other words, if you had 4, that would be an A, 8, that would be a B, 12, that would be a C. Now you think, okay, well, that's not that difficult, but that stuff adds up. It's very, very, and a lot of our assignments are, they build on one another and so forth. So it's very important to for timely submission of your materials and so forth. Okay. Now, a lot of this, again, I'm asking you to read the syllabus on your own, so I'm just going to go through. I'm skipping over quite a bit. Okay. I will only accept PDF or .docx. I will not accept Pages or Google Docs. Okay. No Pages, no Google Docs, only PDF or .docx. And again, if you have been at Tamusa for a bit, you know that every student registered with Tamusa as a student with Tamusa has full access to Microsoft Office, right? So this should not be a problem. Okay. Now, the different kinds of assignments that we'll have, we're going to have discussion board posts. Okay. Um, and I'm just and with the discussion board posts, as we'll see in a minute when we go to the back to the Blackboard site, each discussion board post is um you can choose, right, which question you answer within each discussion board post. Okay. So, and I'm asking for essentially something that indicates critical thinking, indicates thought, indicates that you have invested, right, in this particular work in some way, right? In fact, what the kind of the best strategy to use, or I wouldn't say the best strategy, but an effective strategy to use for the discussion board posts is, right, to, this week go through and read through each of those discussion boards, okay, and to kind of see um, what's being asked in general on the discussion boards, and with which in which works that they're referencing, so that you can strategize, what you want to emphasize with your reading, because there's a lot of stuff on the reading list, but if you work it right and you see, so for example, if there's four options on a discussion post or five options on a discussion post, right, um it may be that each question is referencing a different work and you only have to answer one of those questions, so you choose which of those works you want to fully devote yourself to, right? Okay. um Reading journals. Okay, that's what I'm so the reading journals. Okay, so we have discussion board posts and we have reading journals. Reading journals is essentially going to be your reflection on what it is that you are reading. Okay, so how you're approaching your process of reading, how you're approaching the work, and so on. The questions that you may have as you're reading, and that sort of thing, right? And then you will do a literary project, and this is sort of the center of the course. Now, this literary project, it can be a traditional essay. I've had students do videos. I've had students do uh, you know, write a interpretation of a given work, or write something that is in conversation with a given work. I've had students create paintings. I've had students create comics. I have had students write songs. I've had students do podcasts. Right. So this is very much open as far as what you want this literary project to be, but it must be in conversation with, right, uh, the works, one or more of the works that we're looking at, right? And so, but how it's in conversation with one of the works that we're looking at, and what medium you choose to use, that's going to be up to you, right? And the key point there is that you'll create the work, and then you'll create a follow-up essay or a companion essay, or companion reflection that talks about how your particular work is interacting with, or in conversation with, or an expression of, right, the work that we're doing in the class, right? So, and I've had a number of students have a lot of fun with the literary project. Again, the idea is that you take it seriously, and you approach it with um, all of your creativity, all of everything that you're sort of bringing with you to the experience of reading, right? Um, and then towards the end of the course, you'll do a course retrospective, which is basically like how you're assessing your own experiences in the course, right? It's kind of like, um, for lack of a better metaphor, right? It's like what I did on my summer vacation, right? So it's like what I did this semester, and here's what I think about it, right? Um, Communication. The main thing to think about to think about here is I do not monitor email through Blackboard, or Blackboard, in other words, Blackboard messages. I do not look at Blackboard messages. The reason being is that Blackboard will not send me a notification on that. Okay, so you could put something in Blackboard messages, it'd be 6 weeks before I see it. Okay, please use the Google Voice number provided or use your Tamusa email. It is vital. And it's, I mean, and if you're taking an online course, particularly an asynchronous course, you should know this. It is vital to check your Tamusa email daily because stuff can change, right? So that is something that you want to be aware of. Attendance is going to be assessed by way of you turning in your stuff, right? Okay. Um, so our census date is January 31st. I need to have your first discussion board post before that, okay? Because your response to that first discussion board post is going to tell me, okay, this person is engaging, this person is part of the class, right? Now note that the first discussion board is due before the 31st, but I need it by the 31st. Otherwise, you'll be dropped for non-attendance. Okay. Um, Now I used to not drop students at all and just kind of let them, but what I'm doing now, because really, F's on your transcript are really detrimental, right? Everybody knows that, but I don't, maybe you all, because you're not, first semester freshmen and so on and so forth, maybe you understand how detrimental an F can be. But what I generally do is what I'm um, committing to doing, right, is contacting folks um, on or around the 12th week of class who are in danger of failing, and saying, hey, you're in danger of failing the course. If you don't respond, if you receive an email like that and you don't respond, I will drop you at that point. um so you do need to check your Tamusa email, and you need to make sure that your emails from Blackboard are not going to spam, right? Or not going to clutter or spam. uh because I will be contacting you um through the my essentially my apparatus, right, which is filtered through Blackboard, but it comes to your email and it says my email, but on the tag it'll say Blackboard. So just be mindful of stuff. A lot of this stuff here is standard. I do want to mention AI technology really quick. I am not anti AI technology. It has its place. In other words, a good example of that may be, if I mention, say, for example, if I'm looking at your reading journal, right, and I note that you have a comma splice, you have a bunch of comma splices, right? Um, if you don't know what comma splices are, you can ask ChatGPT how do you correct a comma splice, and it will tell you in great detail. I have researched this myself, right? So for stuff like that, for mechanical things like that, um AI, generative AI technology and so forth is useful, right? It cannot and it does not replace subtlety, creativity, and so forth. It just doesn't. And so where and something that's been generated by AI technology sounds like it's been generated by AI technology, frankly. Okay. So, and I try to give people a benefit of a doubt. Yet I don't like to think, oh, well, this was generated by AI and so forth. I don't want to think that, especially, because this is an effort-based course. I'm just interested in, you putting forth the effort and you improving gradually on the basis of the feedback that you receive, right? So this next item is a community agreement based on based on the student code of conduct, and basically all it's saying is that we're just we're gonna treat each other with respect. And yeah, that's basically all it's saying. And of course, I invite you to read it. Um, these you're all aware of. Um, this is again boilerplate syllabus stuff. Okay. I do want to point out when we get down to it here, the Writing Language and Digital Composing Center, that is going to be a fantastic resource for you, particularly if you're not as confident with your writing as you would like to be. Now, if you obviously you've taken English 1302 or the equivalent, so you do have some base skill with writing. But if I can't emphasize enough how helpful the Wild Center can be. So I would encourage any student, whether they're a confident writer or if you feel like you need some more support, to engage with the Wild Center. Okay. All right. So here's some important dates that you might want to note. All right. So here we're moving into our schedule. And you'll note here that all these are going to be in the individual folders. Uh, week 2, we're going to look at the Epic of Gilgamesh, and you'll see that when you look in the individual folders that I'm not just presenting you with traditional text. There are going to be videos. In some cases, there'll be podcasts, but also traditional text as well, right? But and note here I have optional material related to Genesis. Um, I'm not going to require anyone to read quote unquote sacred text per se. Well, in some case, I mean, some texts that some people find sacred, some pixel. Anyway, but I'm not going to push that you read a sacred text per se if you're not comfortable with it. So I put that on there as optional. And I'm also not going to push you to, if you're not, if in other words, if you have very firm beliefs in the sacredness of a particular text and the interpretation of that text in a particular way, I'm not going to expect you to engage with it in this course, because this course is going to asking you to look at these texts from in some cases thousands of years ago, right? Asking you to look at them in the context of literature and as literature. So there's a difference between liturgical text often and literature, and the way that we engage with them is different. Okay. So for some people, Genesis, for example, is a liturgical or a sacred text. For some people, would look at it clearly and only for literary value, and and thereby can apply literary tools to it and look at it in different ways. And for some people, it's both, right? It can be simultaneously sacred and literary, right? So, but if you are not comfortable going outside of a particular comfort zone, I'm not gonna ask you to necessarily do that if you're not 100% comfortable with it. So that's why I put this on there. Given the culture that a lot of us have grown out of as individuals, I put Genesis on there as optional. I also put the gospel material on there as optional, and I also put the Quranic material on there as optional, because a lot of us have grown out of, one way or another, out of the Abrahamic traditions. And so if you're not comfortable um, focusing on those as literature, right? um, then I'm not going to necessarily ask you to engage with them, right? But if you are comfortable doing that, because of again, engaging them theologically and engaging them as literature are different, right? Um, and I'm not saying one is right and one is wrong. I'm just saying that they're different. Interpretively, they're different. Okay. So week 3, we'll take a look. We'll start with the Ramayana, and there's actually there's an anime for you to watch for that. So you should some of you will find that interesting. Then we'll move into Mahabharata and Bhagavad Gita, move into the Odyssey. Some of you may or may not have already read the Odyssey. In I read it. I first encountered it in like middle school, but some of you may have already read it. But we're looking at different ways to open up the text and look at it in different ways and see how it perhaps still applies to us in some way and or can still apply to us in some way, and also how and why it has sort of remained with us. Okay. We'll look at various interpretive lenses like the hero's journey, like deconstruction. Um, Again, the Luke Acts material, the gospel material, that's optional. Again, you're welcome to engage with it. That's why I put it on the syllabus, but note that you will need to engage with it as literature, not necessarily in a theological context. Okay, so that's all right. We'll move into Beowulf. Beowulf is fun. It is one of our earliest texts preserved in English. And in fact, the sort of story of how Beowulf was preserved in and of itself is kind of interesting. Um, Moving a journey to the west from China. Um, that piece is still very much a part of Chinese consciousness. It's very much a part of American consciousness, believe it or not, because it is the origin, it is the base text for Dragon Ball. Um, so a lot of you are sort of steeped in Journey to the West in one way or another and don't even realize it. But 1001 Nights, again, one of some of the stories within the 1001 Nights have been with us, have just kind of been with us for a long time. And people continue, authors, and other folks, continue to make reference to them in various different ways. So we'll go through and talk about that. After spring break, I'm going to invite you to conference with me over Zoom formally to talk about your literary projects. Okay. Um, After spring break too, we're gonna break into a lot of graphic novels. Right. We're gonna look at The Watchmen. We'll look at Mouse. Um, Love and Rockets, which is actually Mexican American punk um, uh, comic series, a sort of sci-fi, a magical realist sort of comic series that actually still going on. Began in like 1980, and is still going on by the Hernandez brothers. We'll look at the first volume of that. Um, go into the first draft of your literary project being due. Persepolis, great piece by Marjane Satrapi, dealing with a young woman's growing up during the Iranian Revolution. Okay, we'll conference again towards the end of the semester, week 15, where I, talk about my feedback on your literary project and address any kind of concerns that you may have going forward. Your course retrospective then, and then on into finals week where you will turn in your final draft of your literary project, right? Okay. So that is the semester in a nutshell. What I want to do now before I end the video, thank goodness, right? He's actually going to end the video. But I am going to go back to our Blackboard site and I'm going to kind of show you more or less how to navigate it, right? I'm sure some of you are thinking like, what ego does this guy have that he's got the earth behind him, right? Um, Actually, I like the blue, honestly, and also you don't want to see uh, my less than stellar, you know, um, uh, bedroom here. So, uh, the vision of the earth is probably better easier on everybody's eyes, but I am going to take us back to our Blackboard site and yeah, here it is. Okay, here's our Blackboard site again. Um, so, and hopefully the screen sharing is tracking this with me. But if you look at each, like, look at week 2, for example. Um, so there'll be there's a folder for the Epic of Gilgamesh. Um, let's click on that. Um, so you'll have this is a professionally produced video introduction to the Epic of Gilgamesh. You've got a lecture by me on the Epic of Gilgamesh, basically. Okay. You've got the text of the Epic of Gilgamesh. You've got this Spark Notes Epic of Gilgamesh is basically a site that basically gives you a breakdown of the characters, and so on. Helps kind of guide you through it. And then there's the audio book of the Epic of Gilgamesh for folks that are uh, who, like me, are audio learners, right? Who really imbibe material when listening to it, and so that's there for you as well. And really, and you can find tons of stuff on the Epic of Gilgamesh. Like, oh, it really does. And if you watch this video introduction, you'll see why and how it sort of captured people's imagination, right? Okay, so each week kind of lays out like that, right? And if we what am I looking for here? Oh yeah, where's I lost where I was. And so there's a similar folder on the book of Genesis. Again, if you choose to engage with it. Um, there's a PowerPoint on deconstruction, which is a postmodern literary theory that informs a lot of the lenses that we'll be exploring when looking at this literature. Now, for discussion board number 1, it's down here. It gives, if you note, the instructions for the discussion board are here. And then click on it, takes you over to the discussion board. No, look, we've already got some folks that are engaging here, so that's good. But what you'll do is you'll create a thread and you will discuss, right? Um, go back to course content because I want to show you something else. We go down to yeah, if we go down to week 3, we've got the first reading journal, and I want to show you something here. I mean, again, most of you are familiar with Blackboard by now. If you've been at Tamusa for a little bit, but for reading journal number 1, with the way that you submit things through Blackboard, click on the item, and then uh, here this gives you the instructions, right? You do create submission. You do create submission. you upload your file here, right? You upload your Word file. And then once that is uploaded, you will click submit. And then that then sends it to me. And again, what it does is it will timestamp it for me. So I see, oh, this person's, turned their material in on time and so forth, right? Uh, Note that it tells you the due date. Okay. And then again, this point's possible that five, if you get a five on it, it means it's complete, right? It's not points to be added or averaged in any way. It's an emblem of completeness. So if yeah, that's what that's all about. All right. I think I have covered enough to get us started. Again, if you have any questions, you can certainly reach out to me and via my email or the text, the texting phone number that I indicated there. And I look forward to getting to know you, communicating with you, reading your responses to the literature and so forth. And let's have a wonderful semester. And let's think about some of these ideas in some new ways, hopefully. Okay. Thanks for your time today.